Hi everyone, my name is Zach, and in this video we want to take a look on a practical example on how to create your very own procedural shader. In this case we will create a kind of dry clay shader. This is just a creation out of my mind, so I don't use a real life reference for this shader. I just wanted to create something that looks cool. Certainly if you want to create something that exists in the real world, take a look at objects with this material and try to implement this into Blender. So for this material here we will create a base color, a roughness map and a bump map, and for everything we will only use procedural textures. And at the end I show you how to pack all these nodes into one node and still have the most important sliders, so that your material is easy to read and you can share it with your friends, for example, and they can easily use this. Alright, without further words, let's get started. Okay, first of all we are using the Cycles render engine, so switch to this. Then I have split my 3D viewport. Up here we can select stuff, as you can see, and down here this is a camera view with numpad 0, and here I press Shift Z to render inside the viewport, and with Ctrl B I can set a render border. So I can only render a certain area of the image. Up here, as you can see, we have a basic light setup of 3 area lamps which we are using, and we have this simple ground which is set to transparent, where we only can see the shadow. How all this works with lighting and this ground and so on, this I will show you in a separate video. Here we only want to concentrate on creating this clay shader. So I assume that you have a basic understanding on the Cycles render engine and also how to use the nodes for the materials in Cycles. I will not give you a complete introduction into this topic here. I just want to get started and show you how I would create this kind of dry clay shader. So let's select this little creature here, and here in the node editors the shader nodes are enabled, and let's hit new. In this way we are creating a new material. We also can see it over here. Let's call it clay, and let's also drag and drop it onto the eyes. That means both the creature and the eyes will use this material. Then we will change the diffuse shader to the principal shader. This we can quickly do over here. Let's click on the principal, then we can see it's already connected over here. And now let's only work inside the node editor. So first of all, I hit Shift A, input, and create a texture coordinate node, because here we will use this object texture coordinates a lot. And for all of the procedural textures we will use, we can connect them with this one node here. So we don't need to create many of those nodes. Then let's start with the pointiness. Get to input, geometry, converter color ramp, and color mix RGB node. Then let's connect the pointiness with the color ramp and the color ramp with the vector. And this we connect with the base color of the principal node. As you know from the video before, we can use the pointiness feature to detect the creases basically. So, and in this way now we can color the creases in 2 different colors using the mix node. And the upper color is basically the shadow. So let's put this to black. And the lower color will be the main color of our creature here. So this should be an orange. And then you still can adjust these values here. And let's also set this to ease so we have a nicer transition between the dark and the light areas. So this is how this looks like, and keep in mind you always can change this. Also, if you have added all the other nodes and realize that the pointiness is not right, then you still can adjust this. Then let's add the cracks. For this I add a texture, wave texture. We need another color ramp, so let's simply duplicate this with Shift D, and we also need another mix node. Then beside the wave texture we need a noise texture, again a color ramp, and now let's put this together. First of all, let's connect the object output from the texture coordinate with the vector input of the wave and the noise texture. So we are using this object texture coordinates. Here's a simple trick. If I select this node here and press Ctrl H, you can see all the outputs will be disabled which we are not using. And since we are only using this object output, we don't need the rest. The same thing we can do up here. So everything else will be hidden and we have only the things we need. Then let's connect these two things with the color ramp, and let's set back the color ramp to the standard. And let's connect these two things over here. So what does all that things do? First of all, let's shift control left click on this node so we can see what happens inside here. You have to enable the node wrangler add-on in the user preferences to use this feature. Now we have these lines on our object. First thing we do is we set from bands to rings. Now these lines have a circular shape. And now let's increase the scale to 10, for example. Then you can see we have more lines. And then if we are slowly increasing the distortion, you can see that we will add noise to these lines. Let's set this to 50. And then if we go over to the details and increase this value, we are adding even more noise to these lines, as you can see, more details. And now, using this color ramp, let's take a look inside this. You can move it over here and then you can see the lines will be much sharper. So, and if you want to have smaller lines, you can increase the scaling, but then you also get more lines. So as you can see, the lines are just everywhere and there's no break between the lines. And if we have some cracks in objects, the cracks are not going through the whole object in most cases. They are ending and starting somewhere. And this we are doing with this noise texture over here. So let's take a look at this. Here let's take a scale of 10 and let's increase the details to 4. In the color ramps we can put this together, and if I move these two handles closer to each other, you can see we have this noise on the surface. And now we are mixing these two things together using the mix node. But right now if I'm using this, it's not really doing what I want, because I want that the white areas here will be not visible on the black spots of the noise texture. So, and in order to make this work, we have to switch the blend type to multiply. Increase this to 1. And now you can see by multiply, all the white areas will be transparent and only the black spots will be visible. And in this way you can see the cracks, the lines here will be interrupted with these big black spots. And certainly if you are changing this value here, we have different interruptions. So now let's add this to our color. Let's duplicate this node over here. Let's add these cracks as mix factor. That means the upper color here, this one, will be displayed on the black areas. And for the white areas, that means the cracks, we can choose a new color. Let's just darken this. And in this way, as you can see, we now have the cracks on the surface. This we connect with the base color. And then if we take a look inside the shader, we have now this glossy surface. Let's temporarily increase the roughness here so that we don't have that much glossiness, and let's reduce the specular so that we can see the texture better. So let's move all that stuff up to sort this a bit, and let's move this over here. And now the last thing I want to do is to add some color variations here. And for this I simply duplicate the noise texture. We connect this with the texture coordinates, and I duplicate the last mix node, and let's put all this color here into the upper input, and let's set this as mix factor again. So let's reduce this here back to 10, and up here let's use something like 25. The rest we can leave as it is. Then we have these big black spots here, and again we are using this to add a third color here. So, and we don't just want to mix this, let's use another blend type like overlay, for example. And if we are now changing the color, not too much, you can see we have these colored spots on the surface. So, and this we now connecting with the base color, and this will be the final color. Certainly you can now add as many other procedural textures to this color so that you have more variation for this base color. But yeah, we leave it as it is right now. Okay, now we want to create the roughness map. And this we do pretty simple. Let's select a noise texture and a color ramp, duplicate this 2 times. Connect this with the object output up here. And let's also duplicate a mix node. Set this to multiply and increase the factor. And now let's put this into the roughness input. Let's also increase the specularity to 0.5 to see what an actual effect is going on here. So right now we have two noise textures, and here I want to have some small details and some big details. So down here let's increase the scaling factor. That means we have a lot of noise, and if I move this over here, and then you can see we only have a few dots left. Let's set this to ease for a smoother transition. Yeah, and with the scale you can adjust again how many of these dots you will have. And up here we have some bigger areas. Let's set this to 20 for example. So my general idea is that we have some bigger spots which are more glossy and less glossy, and that we have this very tiny glossy spots, like some glittering effect. So that means on our roughness map, all the tiny spots should be pretty black, and most of the rest should be more or less white. That means this stuff here, let's also set this to ease. We put a little bit apart from each other, and let's also brighten up the dark spots here. That means if I connect this directly to the roughness map, it will look like this. You can see we have this more shiny areas and this more soft areas. So now I want to mix those two things, but as we know, if I connect this one with the roughness input here you can see it. Now we have some small soft spots and the rest is glossy, but I want to have that in the other way around. That means under color invert, I add this invert node, and then you can see it will be inverted. Everything is soft except these little spots. So that means this one here is now white with some black spots. Let's connect this with this one here. And now if we have set this to multiply, we only can see the black spot because the white color will be disabled if we use multiply. So now let's connect this with the roughness. And now we have this tiny glossy spots here. And certainly we can adjust this. So let's make them a bit more prominent here. And also let's increase the color here a bit more. And now you can see we have this tiny spots here and there. So if the glossiness is in general too strong for you, you certainly can decrease the specularity here if you like. But yeah, this we also can adjust at the end. So now there is still the bump map missing. So for this, first of all, we need a vector bump node. Connect this with a normal input. And then let's just duplicate this whole stuff here. Shift D. And let's also use a multiply node here. Put those two things together. Let's set this back to black. And again, connect this with the object output. As you can see, we can use this one node for as many textures as we like. Let's connect this with the height input from the bump node. And now let's see what happens. Now this looks a little bit weird. We now have this very strong spots here. So now let's decrease the strength of the bump node. And then you can see the effect even better. But I want to have more details, a more rough shape in general. That means my upper noise, let's reduce this to 4. That means we have very big spots here. And the lower one on 150 is fine for me. But let's adjust this. So we have less black and more white here. And now let's see what we have here. Now you can see with the multiply node, we can mix those two things together. That means in some areas the small noise is stronger and in some areas not. Because for a bump map, white means height basically and black means no height. So as you can see, here it's stronger and up here is less stronger. And let's see it on the surface. And as you can see, a very cool side effect of using a bump node is that you can't see all the artifacts anymore. As you take a closer look, we have some artifacts from the certain resolution this object has. But if I use the bump node, we can't see all that anymore. This is pretty cool. Now let's reduce the strength even more. And now we have this noisy surface, which I think adds to this clay look. But yeah, this small part is maybe a little bit strong. What we can do is to reduce the strength up here. That means we have a bit more of the general big noise and a little bit less of the small noise. And what we also can do to make this look a little bit more interesting, is to distort the upper texture with this distort value. And then you can see we have some pretty interesting shapes in here. Yeah, and with this you can control the bump map. Certainly you can add as many other textures to this as you like. And there's also one thing I want to add, because right now you can't really see the cracks. And certainly we want to see them. And we have to consider, when I want to change the crack size up here, for example, the cracks for the bump map should also adjust automatically according to the changes I do up there. So we'll use this as basis. So let's duplicate this node down here. Let's put this to the lower input, and let's use the color ramp as upper input. But now, as you can see, the mixing is not doing what we want, because white means it's going outwards. Now we have something like veins. It also looks pretty interesting and is, I guess, very useful for something else. But in this case, I want to have the bump map inverted for the cracks. So let's duplicate this invert node, put this in here. And now, as you can see, the cracks are inverted and we can see them better. They are now interacting with the light. And certainly if you are increasing the strength of the bump, then you also can see the cracks better. But yeah, let's not do this too strong. Let's take a look at this one here. If I now decrease the factor here, you can see the other bump map here will be less prominent. That means if I want to have stronger cracks and not that strong other bump map, I can reduce this. So on one little change I want to do here, because right now we are just taking the wave texture as bump map, but certainly we don't want to have the whole wave texture. We also want to have these interruptions. So we take this output here, which is basically the one where the cracks are interrupted, and this I put down here. And then the bump map is also interrupted in some places, and in this way it looks much better. So now we are basically having our final shader, and this we can use for as many other objects as we like. This will always work. Certainly we need to adjust this from time to time in terms of the size of the object, but in general this will work. But now let's assume that you close this file, save this somewhere, and then a few months later you will open this again and you will see this node tree. Certainly if you have some experience with these nodes, this might be not that complex, but it will take you a short while to understand what you have created here. And now I want to show you an easy way how you can compress all the nodes into just one node where you have the most important sliders. And this is also cool if you, for example, want to share this node setup with a friend or the community, and then you easily can put together your shader in a user-friendly way, and people know exactly how to change some values for this node. Basically similar like this, it would look in the end. We just have one big node with some sliders we can change, and then we can, for example, change the crack size and stuff like this. So, how does this work? With B, I select all of the nodes here, and then we can group these nodes together in one node. So I press Ctrl G, and now we are directly inside the group. To move outside the group, we hit Tab, and then you can see we only have this one node here. If you want to remove a group, you can press Alt G, and then you can see the group will be removed. And we can also rename the group to Clay, for example, and then we have this one group. And if we want to take a look inside, select this, press Tab, and now we can see what's inside. Also, you can group nodes inside a group by pressing Ctrl G again. And in this way you can do this Inception-like group in group in group stuff. Let's remove this group by pressing Alt G, and let's move out of this group. And there's one cool thing. If I now hit Shift A under group, we now find this group here, and I can add this again and again. And you can see we have this number here. That means they are all using the same group information. That means if I change a value inside one group, it will also change for the others. So you can reuse groups all over your whole scene, for example, or in different materials. If you want to have a certain part of your material to be the same and the other part to be completely different, then you just group this one part and reuse this in other materials. The groups will be linked. That means you just have to change it once and then it will update on all the other materials automatically. But if you want to have an independent group from the others, you simply have to press this button. Then you can see the name will change, and then you can change this group here without affecting the others here. But yeah, let's remove this too. And now let's take a look inside, because here we now just have this very simple node with only one output. But we want to have all the important sliders here. So let's hit Tab, press N, and here we have this nice inputs and outputs. And these are basically the group output node for this side and the group input node for this side. And everything that we are plugging into the group input will also be displayed on the node itself. So to give you an example, I connect the color 2 with this one here. And if I now tap out of the group, you can see this color will be displayed here. And if I change it here, it will also change over here. So, but the best thing of all is that you can rename this, like main color, for example. And then we want to, for example, change the secondary color. I just call it main color variation. And then, for example, I want to have the color of the cracks. And in the same way, you also can connect values. For example, let's connect the scale value of the wave texture. That means this is the scaling of the cracks. Let's call this crack scale. And if I tap out of this, you can see we have all of these values here. And if I now change something over here, you can see how this is changing our material. So, and if you accidentally have not the right order, you can also move this around, if you like, to order this in a way you need it. Yeah, and in this way I now will connect some other values to this group input node to have my final shader. But since this will take a short while, I will skip this part and just show you my final result and which values I have connected with this group input node. So this is what I have right now. Certainly you can connect the values you think are important and remove the ones you think which are not important. So I have the 3 colors up here, which I had connected before. Let's go into here. Then I have the cracks fade out scale. I didn't have a better name for this. This is basically the noise texture scale, which is controlling where we can see the wave texture and where not. Then we have cracks variation. This is a distortion value of the wave texture. So that means should the cracks are more flat, are more straight, or more noisy. Then we have the roughness strengths. Here I show you something in a second. Then we have the roughness scale big and the roughness scale small. These are basically the scale values of these 2 noise textures. And then I have the bump strengths, which is the strength of the bump map, and the bump scale big and the bump scale small, which are the scaling values of these 2 noise textures. And then again to the roughness strengths here. With this value I just want to define, let's see how this looks, if the roughness map should be used or not. As you can see, if I put this value to 1, I have no roughness map, then we have just the pure glossiness. And if I put this down, I have the roughness map. And here I added a new node, which is basically a multiply node. That means under color, the mix RGB node set to multiply. And here I used the factor, and here I plugged in the roughness map as input 1 and set the second color to black. So let's quickly see what this does. If I set this to 0, you can see we can see the full roughness map. And if I put this up to 1, you can see this will be just black. You can also set this to mix up here, so it doesn't have to be multiply. But if you don't want to have the final result just glossy, instead just smooth, you can set this value to white. And then you just have a very smooth output here. So you can control if the whole thing should be smooth or not. Certainly you can also connect this color with the group input. But yeah, I thought this could be interesting to adjust the roughness here. Yeah, and as you can see now, this is much more readable than this whole node setup here. Yeah, as mentioned before, this is not a physical accurate material or something like this. This is just something that looks cool. So, and now let's have a little bit of fun. Now we can change the color, for example. Also the other color here. Maybe let's set the cracks to green here. And I want to have bigger cracks and less fade out. Stuff like this. And as you can see, easily you can change your material to look completely different. And if you want to use it on another object, you can duplicate this. And let's imagine you have another object with no eyes. And hit the plus button, then this will be duplicated. And then we can easily change the values here and have a little bit of variation. So before we finish this video, I just want to show you one last thing. What if, for example, you want to use this material also in another Blender file? So I now want to have this clay shader also in this scene here, for example. So I go to File, Append, navigate to my blend file, click on this, and here we find the folder Material. And there we have the clay material and click Append from Library. And now it is here in this blend file as well. So if I select this monkey here, the clay shader, and render this, now you can see this clay shader is also working on this monkey here. Certainly the lamp is way too dark. But if I increase the strength, you can see how this works. And also, which is very important, our little creature there was pretty small in size. That means all the values we have used there are used for this very small object. So for a bigger, larger object, you certainly have to, for example, decrease the scale value here so you have bigger cracks then. And all the other values you can change as well. But in this way you can easily adjust this clay shader to your needs. And here you can see the reflection of this clay shader even better. Yeah, and I don't know if you notice this, but the creature in the teaser of this workshop uses the same material we just created. I just edited some values so that I have a different color and maybe a different bump map and stuff like this, but it's still the same material we just created. Yeah, and in order to make this look so nice, certainly we have to add some nice lighting to our scene. But yeah, more about lighting you will learn in the next video. Yeah guys, that's it with this video. Now you have your custom clay shader. Take this whole things we have learned in this video as inspiration and apply this to your very own materials. Certainly you can also add in some seamless textures and so on to create some effects which are maybe not possible with procedural textures, but in general the whole workflow keeps the same. So have fun and create some awesome materials.